Incredible rescue, cow saved from giant python attack awakened to a life-changing bond. It was the kind of day that would be etched in the hearts of a small Texas town forever. As Jake stumbled upon the scene, a massive python coiled around his beloved cow. Bessie, his heart raced like a runaway train. That threatening serpent, a creature out of a nightmare, had seized what he cherished most. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline. This was not just a rescue mission, it was a fight for his very essence, a struggle against abandonment and fear. Bessie, with her calm brown eyes, had always been his anchor in life's storms, the steady heartbeat that resonated like a soothing lull on those restless nights. Even now, nestled in the snake's deadly grip, she looked at Jake, her gaze pleading, unwavering. Jessica, a neighbor, gasped. "Jake, you need to do something." The urgency tightened his chest. He sprinted forward, fueled by desperation, determination bursting forth like a floodgate. "Get away from her!" he shouted, every word racing through the Texas air. The python hissed, a sound so raw it mirrored Jake's inner demons, the fears of failure, the ghost of his father who left him long ago, leaving only echoes of regret. With a swift, reckless move, he lunged. The python wrapped tight, squeezing the life out of Bessie, but Jake was fueled by love, desperation tipping the scales. "Bessie, I've got you!" he cried, adrenaline coursing as he wrestled with the beast. Every second felt like an eternity, his neighbors shouting, their faces painted with shock and disbelief. Tension filled the air, but a part of him felt weightless. The sweat dripped down his brow as they struggled, each tug on the snake's body pulled him deeper into a reckoning. Here he was, a farmer at war, not just for his cow, but for his heart, for the right to love and nurture what was his. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a collective shout, his friends surrounded him. Together, they added strength, their voices chanting for courage echoed like thunder across the parched landscape. It was the unity of community triumphing over fear, the very spirit of Texas alive in that moment. As Jake wrenched Bessie free, her soft moan brought fresh tears to his eyes. The python, denied its victory, slithered into the tall grass, defeated. With Bessie safe in his arms, Jake's heart swelled. He felt the love of his neighbors, their warm smiles igniting hope within his battered soul. This wasn't just about a cow, it was about kinship, survival, and a surge of new beginnings. The sunset painted the horizon in breathtaking colors, reminding him that while shadows may loom, light always follows. In that moment, he realized healing could be possible not just for Bessie but for himself, too. Could he finally confront the specter of forgiveness that haunted him like a ghost? The warmth of his hand on Bessie's back felt like a promise of rebirth. But as he murmured sweet reassurances to her, a knot tugged at his heart. What of his father? He stood at the precipice of confrontation, every breath a blend of hope and hesitation. Would he have the strength to reach out? The horizon loomed, uncharted and wild, filled with unanswered questions, each pulse of his heart echoing changes yet to come. The aftermath of the rescue enveloped Jake in a profound mix of relief and reflection. He cradled Bessie, her warmth calming his racing heart. The crowd began to disperse, their chatter fading into the distance, leaving behind a stillness that was both comforting and heavy. The Texas dusk draped the town in golden hues, a stark reminder of nature's beauty and brutality. As he stood there, the sweet scent of grass filled his lungs. Bessie nudged him gently, her big brown eyes glistening in the fading light. It was as if she understood the turmoil inside him, the cascade of feelings that threatened to overwhelm him. "You're okay, girl, we made it," he breathed, brushing his hand across her coat. But the reprieve was short-lived. Memories of his father invaded his mind, sharp and unforgiving, like barbed wire tangled in his chest. The last time they had spoken, anger had dripped from every word. His father, a man who never seemed to forgive or forget, who had left Jake with wounds he yearned to heal. He could still remember the stinging rebukes. "You'll never be strong enough," echoed tauntingly. The walk home felt long and heavy. Each step was a reminder that he had a choice to make, to let those memories consume him or to confront them head-on. Maybe it was time to find his father, to face the bitterness and pain. After all, he had battled a python today. Shouldn't that give him courage to confront the demons of his past? As Jake entered the farmhouse, he turned on the light. The familiar comfort of home wrapped around him, but the emptiness settled deeply. He placed a gentle hand on Bessie's side as she settled into her familiar spot in the barn. "I need to figure out what this all means," he whispered, glancing at the stars beginning to twinkle in the night sky. Each pinprick of light seemed to urge him onward, as if they were guiding him to a revelation. He couldn't lose sight of what mattered. Bessie had taught him what love really felt like. No matter the challenges, the bond they shared transcended fear and pain. He stooped low, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Thanks for sticking with me, girl. I guess we both deserve a chance to heal." Bessie responded with a soft moo, her trust unwavering as she leaned into him. With the certainty of dawn approaching, Jake realized something. All these years, he had run from the confrontation he needed. But now, with fresh strength coursing through him, he felt ready. Could he make that call? Could he be the one to break the cycle? Just as these thoughts crystallized, a sudden noise echoed from the back of the barn. A rustle, a shadow that shouldn't be there. Jake's heart began to race again, this time not from fear but from curiosity. He felt that familiar surge of adrenaline as he edged toward the sound. Something was out there. Something, or someone, that could change everything again. What would he find lurking in the darkness? Jake paused, holding his breath, the shadows dancing in the barn like whispers of the past. His heart pounded in his chest, echoing that feeling he had during the rescue. Curiosity mingled with a twinge of fear as he stepped cautiously toward the source of the sound. Bessie shifted behind him, her large frame blocking the dim light and casting a comforting presence. He turned to her, sensing she was as eager to discover the source of the rustle as he was. "Stay close, girl," he murmured, placing a reassuring hand on her side. The air was still, heavy with anticipation, as he approached the corner where the noise had come from. The barn was dimly lit, but Jake could see the outline of something shifting, a creature perhaps, or maybe just an errant breeze causing the hay to flutter. As he rounded the corner, his breath hitched in his throat. It was a cat. A small, scruffy, frightened tabby with wide eyes gazing back at him. Every instinct told Jake to turn away, but somehow, the vulnerability of the tiny creature tugged at his heartstrings. It reminded him of Bessie's earlier state of fear. Both had their battles. "Hey there, little one," he whispered softly, kneeling down to make himself less intimidating. The tabby, though cautious, didn't flee. Instead, it took a few ginger steps closer, drawn in by Jake's gentle tone and demeanor. It seemed to sense his own battle scars, the loneliness, the fear, the desire for connection. He offered a hand, palm up, inviting trust. "You're safe now," he assured, remembering what he had fought to save Bessie. Instincts of compassion swelled within him again. Tentatively, the cat moved forward, sniffing the air before finally approaching his palm. A wave of warmth ran through Jake. It was a simple act, but it felt monumental, like a small victory against the tough shell he had built around his heart. As he stood up, with the cat now curled in his arms, a sudden thought struck him like a lightning bolt. Wasn't it possible that connection was a thread that ran deeper than fear? The thought of reaching out to his father entangled with the idea of holding this creature so close. If the tiny life in his grasp could find safety and trust, could he, too, find a way back to his father? With a new determination brewing inside him, Jake turned to head back outside, the cat nestled securely in his hold. Bessie followed beside him, curious and calm. It was then he heard his phone vibrating in his pocket. The noise shattered the quiet stillness and filled him with both fear and hope. Could it be a message from his father? Or was it a distraction he could let slip away like puddles evaporating in the Texas sun? As he retrieved the phone and glanced at the screen, his breath caught. It was a message, an invitation that could change everything. The familiar digits sent memories flooding back, along with dread, along with a flicker of excitement. What would he do next? Would he take that leap? The air grew denser with anticipation. The message read, "Can we talk?" Jake felt a decision weighing heavily on him, one that could redefine his future. Would he be ready to confront his past while holding on to the life that had just appeared in his arms? Jake stared at the screen, the text pulsing in the quiet of the barn. "Can we talk?" It echoed in his mind, blending with the heartbeat of his own emotions. Thoughts raced through him as he stood frozen, feeling both the weight of the cat in his arms and the burden of his past pressing against him like an unwanted shadow. Bessie nuzzled against him, grounding him in the present. The warmth of her presence anchored him, an unspoken reminder that he was not alone. With a deep breath, he tapped the reply button, fingers trembling. "Yeah, I'd like that," he typed, glancing once at the tabby, who gazed up at him with those wide, trusting eyes. Maybe he could find a way to bridge the distance with his father, just as he had done with this little creature. He hit send, uncertainty flooding his chest. What if his father didn't really want to talk? What if they were too far gone, that there was no salvageable relationship left? These nagging doubts crashed over him like waves, but still, something inside him couldn't ignore the flicker of hope. Suddenly, a soft purring filled the barn, drawing his gaze back to the tabby. It had nestled further into his embrace, purring as if to soothe both of them. That little sound sparked a realization. Vulnerability was not weakness, it was a potential for growth. With his heart racing, Jake stepped out of the barn into the fading daylight. The warmth of the Texas sun cast long shadows across the fields, reminding him that change could start with a single step in the right direction. He looked down at the cat, its confidence growing with each moment spent in his arms. "You're ready for this, aren't you?" he murmured. The cat gave a contented little stretch in response. Jake's thoughts drifted to his father again, the man who had walked out of his life all those years ago. Always a mystery, always a source of pain. But that pain didn't have to define him. Looking at this small creature, he felt a stirring of courage and urge to reconnect, to mend. His phone buzzed again, breaking his reverie. A new message lit up the screen, his father's name. Jake swallowed hard, his heart thundering in his chest like an approaching storm. "Let us meet. How about the old cafe on Maple?" Jake's stomach flipped. The old cafe. Memories flooded back, slices of pie and laughter, sun-soaked afternoons filled with promise. But that was years ago, long before the silence and hurt had fallen like a dark curtain between them. He hesitated, then felt Bessie press against his side. "Okay." The word escaped him before fear could drown it out. "I'll be there," he typed, hands shaking slightly as he sent it off. The feeling of determination lit a fire inside him. He could talk to his father. He could face the past that had haunted him for so long. As he walked back toward the house, the sun dipping low on the horizon, Jake felt a shift inside, a mix of anxiety and hope. He was ready for this. He was ready to try, but as he approached the house, he paused. What if his father had changed too? What if it wasn't just about Jake needing to reach out, but about what they both needed to confront? Jake's heart raced again. There were still so many unanswered questions. The future felt uncertain, and yet undeniably close. Would he truly be able to mend this broken relationship? Or would old wounds simply reopen? With one last glance at the tabby clinging to his shirt, Jake stepped inside, knowing that answers were just ahead. As he closed the door, a resolve washed over him. Tomorrow could change everything. And as he made his way to the night's plans, another text vibrated the pocket of his jeans. One that might push him closer to a truth he had yet to face fully. Jake fumbled his phone out of his pocket, curiosity twinging alongside his anxiety. The screen lit up with another message. "You won't believe what happened today." It was from Marco, his childhood friend. He felt a familiar pang of nostalgia, a reminder of all the summers spent wandering the fields and dreaming beneath the wide open sky. He could almost hear Marco's voice, excited and full of life. But the lightness faded again as he remembered the weight of his current situation. Jake didn't have the heart to engage right now. Not when he was standing on the precipice of something so life-altering with his father. He slid the notification away, but the temptation gnawed at him. With a sigh, he texted back, "What's up?" While waiting for a response, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of dread tightening in his chest. The air grew heavy, filled with questions he had long kept buried. Bessie had settled on the kitchen counter, lazily scratching at an invisible itch. His eyes fell upon her, the tiny tabby pawing gently at the air, carefree. How could something so small offer such comfort? He smiled to himself, appreciating her presence once more. She had a way of reminding him that not everything was complicated. Sometimes, love just showed up, purring softly when you needed it the most. Jake glanced at the clock, the minutes inching closer to their meeting time. He fled for the front porch, the Texas night air wrapping around him like a warm embrace. The stars twinkled overhead, shining down as if encouraging him. "Maybe this is it," he whispered. "Maybe I can step out of the shadow." His phone buzzed again. This time, things felt different. Marco's words flowed onto the screen. "Dude, you won't believe this. I was helping at the ranch, and we had to save this cow from a giant python. It was insane. You need to come down and see the whole thing." Jake's breath caught in his throat. The imagery of a cowboy heroically rescuing a cow from a predator rippled through his mind. Crazy as it sounded, it felt familiar, an echo of his own desire to rescue. He had been wrestling with his own fears for far too long. The phone vibrated one more time. "We couldn't save the last one last year. But this time, we succeeded. It made me think of all those times we used to save the day together. Remember? We should team up again." The warm sensation of camaraderie filled Jake's lungs. Before he realized it, he texted back, "I've got to see this." It was a lifeline, a distraction, and an opportunity to breathe before plunging into the deeper waters of his father's heart. With a determined nod, he headed back inside. But thoughts of the encounter with his father clung to him like that old barn dust. How might tomorrow look if he put things right? The familiar creak of the floorboard reminded him that moments of change were often wrapped in uncertainty. Aside from the thrill of a new adventure, he couldn't ignore the stillness whispering truths hidden in his heart. Tomorrow's meeting loomed closer, like an approaching storm. Would he gather the strength to confront it bravely, or would he find himself retreating into those old habits? As he settled onto the couch, a calm washed over him, hinting that perhaps the resolution he sought wasn't just about facing his father. Maybe he was meant to find answers he didn't yet know to ask. Bessie curled up at his side, and for once, he felt ready for whatever came next. But just before sleep pulled him under, the final thought prickled in his mind. What lay ahead was far more intricate than meeting his father. Tomorrow could reveal more than just a conversation. Could it be a reckoning, one that might redefine not just their bond, but Jake's own sense of belonging? The door he had opened felt both exciting and terrifying, and he knew tomorrow would offer clarity or chaos. Morning light crept into Jake's room, soft and warm, but it couldn't chase away the butterflies swirling in his stomach. He sat up in bed, wrestling with the thoughts of what lay ahead. Today felt monumental, a day that could tip the scales between hesitation and action. Could he really do it? Could he finally find the strength to heal something long broken? After dressing, he wandered into the kitchen where the scent of coffee brewed, rich and inviting. Bessie meowed as if sensing his mood. She darted between his feet, her playful energy a reminder that life still thrived around him, despite the heaviness in his heart. Jake poured a cup, the steam rising, warming his hands and giving him a moment's peace until his phone buzzed again, jolting him back to reality. It was Marco, full of enthusiasm. "Can't wait to see you at the ranch. I'll show you the rescue site. You won't believe the size of that python." The text pulled a smile from him, a flash of the excitement he and Marco used to share. Those carefree days of childhood adventure felt so far gone now. Deep down, Jake knew he needed this. Another distraction? Sure. But it also felt like the push he needed to rekindle a part of himself he had buried along with old memories. As he drove towards the ranch, the sights of familiar fields rolled past. The golden hues of the tall grasses swayed in the wind, whispering to him, coaxing forgotten dreams to awaken. He remembered the laughter shared, the trouble they got into, and the bonds that had shaped them. Each turn toward the ranch felt like peeling back layers of a cocoon he never realized he had wrapped around himself. Pulling into the ranch, memories collided with the present. Marco waved from the barn, that same infectious smile stretching across his face. Jake felt his heart lighten. Marco always had a gift for making the ordinary seem extraordinary. "Jake! You're here!" Marco shouted, bounding over with that same exuberance that seemed to know no bounds. "It's going to be epic. Tell me everything." Jake replied, trying to mirror the energy, but feeling a tingle of anxiety creeping back in. What does it mean to be epic today, when there were other battles ahead? Did he have it in him to be present, to let go of his worries for a while? As they walked toward the pen, Marco animatedly recounted the rescue, his voice vibrant, painting the scenario vividly. "The python was massive. We thought we could lose the calf. But we banded together, and Adrian had a rope ready." Jake listened, heart racing not just from the wild tales, but from the reminder that there was a world outside of conflict and pain. Here, amidst rescue stories and ranch life, perhaps he could train his focus away from what lingered in his heart about his father. Sometimes, you just have to leap into the unknown. Like we always did, remember? Marco chuckled, nudging Jake playfully. "Yeah," Jake replied, a smile breaking through. "I remember those leaps and the falls. But each fall taught us something, didn't it? You can't get through life without a few bruises." Marco's sincerity caught Jake off guard. The truth hung in the air, heavy yet comforting. As they reached the pen, Jake spotted the calf. It was alive, thriving. And with that little glimpse of hope, something shifted within him. Would he find a similar kind of rebirth today? Would confronting his father allow him to finally heal? The moment he stepped closer, surveying the land and the life around him, the weight of his thoughts felt a bit lighter. Maybe each rescue was an act not just for those they saved, but for themselves as well. But then again, what if today wasn't just about witnesses to a great story? What if it was about awakening truths he wasn't ready to face? As the sun hung high, lighting the dusty ranch in hues of gold, he felt the pulse of possibility racing anew. He steeled himself, knowing that today was only the first step. What was next? Would this pursuit of joy actually lead him to the courage he sought, or would he remain ensnared in his current fears? Jake drew in a breath. His journey was far from over. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline as he followed Marco into the pen. The air buzzed with the excitement of the day's adventures, a sharp contrast to the weight that still clung to his heart. The calf nuzzled against a fence post, its big, innocent eyes reflecting a spirit that was both playful and cautious. Jake envied that boldness. "Look at him," Marco said, crouching down to scratch the calf's head. "He has been through so much, but he is still here, still fighting. Just like all of us, huh?" "Yeah, I guess so." Jake's response came out more subdued than he intended. How could he even compare their struggles? This calf was a living testament to resilience. The pressure of his father's expectations flickered at the back of his mind like a shadow he couldn't shake off. "Let us go check on the python site," Marco suggested, straightening up and gesturing toward the wooded area beyond the ranch. "You'll love it." "Sure," Jake replied, stalling for a moment with a half-hearted smile. Memories of climbing trees and conquering fears flooded back. But this time, the stakes felt so much higher. The adrenaline of adventure felt skewed by the very real conflict that lay ahead. As they strolled towards the woods, the vibrant sounds of the ranch faded behind them, replaced by a quiet rustling of leaves and distant birdsong. Jake struggled to keep pace with Marco's enthusiasm. What if I can't handle this? What if I can't confront him? Hey, what's on your mind? Marco suddenly turned, his expression shifting from exhilaration to concern. You went quiet on me there. Jake hesitated, the words wrestling in his throat. Just thinking about stuff. Family stuff. Marco nodded, his eyes softening. Man, I get it. Family can be a lot. But sometimes you have to face it to get past it. Remember how we used to climb those trees and jump right off? Scary as hell, but once you did it. Freedom. Yeah, freedom, Jake echoed, trying to summon that old fire. Freedom felt so distant right now. They continued down the path, finally reaching the area where the python incident had taken place. A web of branches and vines crisscrossed the ground, remnants of the chaos they had faced. Marco lunged a little ahead, pulling back some foliage that covered the trampled grass. Jake stared at the disruption, his heart racing at the thought of the danger that had lurked here. It's crazy, right? Marco exclaimed, enthusiasm shining in his eyes. But look. Life has a way of bouncing back. It sounds like this place is telling a story. You think you can't come back from something scary, but here we are. Jake glanced around, feeling a flicker of inspiration but still haunted by uncertainty. How long could he avoid facing the truth? His pulse quickened as thoughts of his father crept back, vivid and taunting. Yeah, I see what you mean. He turned to Marco with a tight smile. But what if this is different? Different how? Every moment is a chance to start fresh, bud. We're resilient. You just gotta believe it. Marco insisted, his voice more of a challenge now. Jake felt a mix of gratitude and frustration. Did Marco really get it? Could anyone? He wanted to believe the same thing, yet doubt hung around him like heavy fog. Suddenly, he felt small. As silence enveloped them, Jake took a deep breath, letting the fresh air fill his lungs. He thought of all the times he had felt broken before, yet here he stood, feet planted firmly in the dirt. Maybe he could find his strength again. Let us check out those tracks over there, he said, trying to shift focus, moving toward an area where remnants of the past lay buried under a tangle of leaves. And in that moment, beneath the branches, Jake stumbled upon something unexpected, a small, weathered toy tractor partially buried in the ground. A hint of nostalgia washed over him, memories of endless summer days with Marco coming alive, and with it an unexpected urge to confront his father took shape. Could he finally grapple with the shadow left in his wake? As they bent down to examine it together, Marco glanced at him earnestly. You're ready, you know? Just give it a shot. Jake inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. Not just the toy, but the truth. The potential of change loomed like an unseen sunrise, pressing gently but persistently against the shadows of his past. The decision to confront his father simmered just beneath the surface. Maybe today's adventure was more than just rescuing a calf or bantering with old friends. Maybe it was the catalyst he needed to actually leap into the unknown once again. Let us go find that python, Jake announced, determination flickering in his heart. But what he didn't expect was that what lay ahead could reveal more than he was ready to uncover. As they trudged deeper into the woods, the atmosphere shifted. A thick silence enveloped them, broken only by the crunch of twigs beneath their boots. Jake could feel the anticipation building within him, an unsettling mix of excitement and anxiety. Each step brought them closer to the spot where they had faced fear and danger before. Do you think the python is still around? Marco's voice was light, but Jake sensed the edge of seriousness hiding beneath the bravado. I hope not, Jake replied, glancing over his shoulder as if the snake might slither out from behind a tree. The memory of that day was raw, vivid, a nightmare playing on repeat. Don't worry. If it is, we'll figure it out, Marco said with a mock confidence that only slightly reassured Jake. They reached a small clearing where the chaos had once reigned. The ground was still scarred from that day, a reminder that danger lurked even in familiar spaces. Jake stood at the edge, heart pounding as he scanned the area. This was the moment that would define him. He could either run from his fears or confront them head-on. Why do you think it decided to come here? Marco pondered aloud, kneeling to examine the earth. Maybe we unknowingly disturbed its territory, Jake murmured, gazing blankly at the ground, lost in thought. The reality of facing his father swirled through his mind, a tempest that felt more daunting than any giant snake lurking in the shadows. Hey, look! Marco suddenly shouted, excitement bubbling over as he pointed toward a nearby bush. Tracks. We should see where they lead. Jake forced himself to move, urgency pushing him forward. He peered closer, intrigue sparking something inside him he thought he had lost. The trail was fresh, a twisted line of destruction that spoke of chaos and life. It was a reminder that there was more to confront than just his father. There were parts of himself that needed to be reclaimed. "Let us follow it," Marco suggested, his eyes gleaming with purpose. With a determined nod, Jake agreed. They stepped into the brush, driven by a mixture of curiosity and a burgeoning bravery. The deeper they ventured, the more the forest spoke to them. It was alive, full of promise and unknowns. After a few minutes, they reached a small ridge that overlooked a calm pond. The sunlight glinted off the water's surface, creating a shimmering tapestry that momentarily distracted Jake from the snake-esque shadow that loomed in his heart. "Wow," Marco breathed, taking in the beautiful scene. "This is amazing." Jake felt the tension lift slightly as he stared out at the expanse. "It really is." But then, a rustle broke the tranquility, and a small, frantic movement caught Jake's eye. "Did you see that?" he whispered, heart racing again as a flash of something bright emerged from the underbrush. Marco squinted. It might be a bird, or suddenly, a small creature emerged from the foliage, fur-matted and eyes wide with fear. It was a baby rabbit, trembling as if caught in a nightmare of its own. For a moment, Jake's heart ached with the sight. The innocence, the vulnerability felt familiar, resonating within him. Memories swirled in his mind of feeling cornered, like that rabbit. He thought of his father's expectations, the burdens, the fear that had shaped him into someone he barely recognized. A flicker of understanding lit up inside him. "Let us help it," Jake said, the words tumbling out before he realized their significance. Helping the rabbit felt like helping himself, a way to confront the fears he had been running from. Marco nodded, stepping forward. "You got it. But we need to be careful. Pythons love to lurk near water." The realization of their shared goal snapped Jake into focus. With every moment spent trying to save the rabbit, he felt a little closer to facing his father, the fear that had held him back from truly living. As they approached the trembling rabbit, Jake's hand shook, not from fear but from a burgeoning conviction. Today wasn't just about rescue, it was about transformation. But as they reached out, the underbrush shifted again, this time much more threatening. A low hiss echoed through the trees, a clear warning that the python wasn't far behind. Jake's heart raced. Would courage be enough to face the darkness ahead? And with that chilling sound in the air, a decision loomed with gravitating force. How far was he willing to go for his own freedom? The hiss lingered like a heavy fog, coiling around Jake's mind. He could feel the weight of it pressing against him, urging him to retreat. But something inside him flickered with defiance. The rabbit needed them. He looked over at Marco, whose expression shifted from excitement to alarm. "Jake, we can't stay here," Marco whispered, eyes darting around. "If the python's close," but Jake didn't budge. He glanced back at the rabbit, which was still trembling, its tiny body barely moving. A warmth surged through him, stronger than the fear gripping his heart. "We can't just leave it." Marco hesitated, glancing between Jake and the underbrush. Something behind him rustled louder, giving him the push he needed. "Okay, we'll work quickly. You grab it. I'll keep watch." With a nod, Jake locked eyes with the rabbit. He crouched low, heart racing as he extended his hand slowly, trying not to spook it. The rabbit froze, its wide eyes searching for danger. Moments stretched into eternity as he reached closer. Just as his fingertips brushed its furry back, a loud crack echoed through the woods. Danger lurked near, taunting Jake's resolve. He darted a glance at Marco, who was on edge, muscles tense as if ready to spring. "Come on," Marco urged, his voice barely above a whisper. In that instant, the rabbit bolted. Panic surged, and Jake lunged. He narrowly caught it around the middle. It squirmed, but Jake held on, a fierce protectiveness blooming in his chest. "It's okay, little one," he murmured, fingers trembling as he cradled the rabbit. The hiss returned, sharper this time, and Jake felt terror claw at his throat. He didn't bother to look, he could sense the python's presence, a palpable threat in the air. Jake, please. Marco shouted, eyes darting toward the direction of the sound. We have to move. But Jake's mind raced in a different direction. He held the rabbit tighter, heart thrumming with each second that passed. It struggled slightly, and Jake felt that shared sense of vulnerability. They were both trapped in their own ways, held captive by fear, the rabbit to its predator, and Jake to his father's expectations. Let us go, Jake breathed finally, refusing to let fear dictate his actions. He turned and sprinted with Marco, the rabbit pressed close to his chest, its heartbeat thrumming against his own. Branches whipped against their skin as they ran, shards of twigs snapping underfoot. Strangely, every step drew a line through the fog that had clouded his mind for so long. Jake felt lighter, the burdens of his past slipping away with every powerful stride. Suddenly, Marco skidded to a halt, forcing Jake to stop as well. There's nowhere to hide. Panic flared up again as they searched for an escape. They were out in the open. Jake felt that familiar tightening in his chest, the voice of his father echoing in his ears. He couldn't let that voice win this time. Over there. Marco shouted, directing his attention to a thick tree trunk ahead. They raced toward it, the dense bark offering a shred of hope. As they reached the tree, the low hiss escalated into a deafening roar. The python, sleek and menacing, burst from the underbrush, and Jake froze, eyes locked onto the gleaming scales. In that moment, adrenaline coursed through his veins and he knew something had to shift. He couldn't allow fear to snare him again. Now, Jake! Marco shouted. Get behind the tree. But Jake held his ground, the rabbit nestled against him. Instead of running, he remembered the glimmer of strength that had ignited before. We can't just run. We need to stand up for ourselves. He exclaimed, defying the overwhelming fear. As if sensing the shift in energy, the python hesitated, pausing. It was a moment of unsure fury, its tongue flicking in and out, sizing up its prey. Jake took a deep breath, feeling every emotion ripple through him, fear, courage, and protective instinct intertwining, and then, something unexpected happened. The rabbit twitched, darting out of Jake's grasp straight toward the python. Time slowed as it lunged forward. No! Jake shouted, instinctively stepping out in front of the tiny creature, but as the rabbit dashed, it stopped just short of the python, turning and thumping its feet rapidly against the ground, as if challenging the larger creature. The python hissed again, enraged and confused. Jake took a step back, shock washing over him. What was happening? In that moment, he realized they weren't just trapped in this encounter, they were both reclaiming their power. The stark truth hit him: survival often meant standing and facing fear, not running from it. And as he watched the rabbit dance defiantly in front of the python, he felt it take root inside him: hope, rebirth, and an unyielding will. What are you doing? Marco gasped, eyes wide. Jake shook his head, feeling a flood of clarity. They were in this together, and they could outsmart their fears. Before he could fully comprehend what he was about to do, he grabbed Marco's arm and pulled him closer to the rabbit. Let us confuse it. But just as they prepared to act, another sound erupted through the thick woods, a growl, deep and thunderous. The undergrowth rustled behind them, and suddenly, they weren't alone. A new adversary was entering the fray, and Jake's heart dropped all over again. What lay behind the trees? Would it be friend or foe? He looked at Marco, who mirrored his rising trepidation, realizing they might have opened a doorway to an even greater challenge. With no choice but to confront the unknown, they stood firm, preparing for whatever storm might come next. As the growl rippled through the air, Jake's heart pounded like a drum. Fear gripped him, but this time, something else simmered beneath determination. Whatever this new presence was, he wouldn't let it snatch away the fragile courage he'd embraced. And then it appeared, a coyote. Lean, sleek, and full of the raw energy of the wild. The animal stood, poised just behind them, sparked by curiosity as it surveyed the standoff. The python hissed, still fixated on the brave little rabbit who was now set to face down its adversary. Jake, we have to move. Marco's voice pierced through the chaos, but Jake remained glued to the spot. He felt the energy shift in the air. The coyote had joined the fray, eager to reclaim its territory but also to take advantage of the tension between predator and prey. "Wait!" Jake shouted, impulsive as he stepped forward. The truth unfurled inside him like the dawn creeping up over the horizon. He didn't want to run anymore. "No one has to die here." The words rang out, trembling yet defiant. The rabbit, perhaps sensing the sincerity in Jake's voice, continued to thump its feet, challenging both the python and the coyote, a testimony of survival against all odds. The coyote sniffed the air, and for a moment, all was silent, a standoff between three souls driven by instinct and fear. The python appeared uncertain. It turned slowly from the rabbit toward the unexpected newcomer. The coyote surveyed the situation again, eyes narrowing as it gauged its own chances. And then it seemed to take a step back, as if realizing the danger of going head-to-head with the snake. "No!" Jake shouted again, urgency bleeding into his tone. "This isn't just survival, it's about life." Suddenly, a brush of awareness crackled through the air. It was as if Jake's call to life reached not only the creatures but also penetrated his own heart. He could reclaim his life, he could confront what had haunted him. It wasn't simply the dynamics of nature at play, this was a mirror reflecting his battle with fear, much like what loomed with his father's eye. In the blink of an eye, the rabbit darted past the python, racing toward a thicket of underbrush. Both the predator and the coyote hesitated, caught off guard. Seizing the moment, Jake urged, "Now, Marco! We need to go." Together, they sprinted towards the rabbit, who had taken refuge under a low bush. In that moment of reprieve, Jake paused to deliver one last glance at the unfolding chaos. The coyote and python were still preoccupied with one another, the delicate balance poised on the edge of survival. "Jake!" Marco yelled, snapping him from his reverie. "Get it and let us move." Jake lunged forward, scooping the trembling rabbit into his arms with a gentle grasp. As if sensing his resolve, the rabbit ceased its trembling, calming beneath his touch. Jake could feel the little creature's heartbeat synchronizing with his own, a pulse of life, a reminder of courage in the face of all adversity. Time blurred as he and Marco dashed back toward the tree line. The sounds of hissing and growling faded behind them, replaced by the sound of their rapid breaths mingling with the rustling leaves. It wasn't just their feet that moved, it was their spirits being reborn. Finally, they burst into a clearing, sunlight pouring down around them. Breathing heavily, they slowed to a walk, and Jake felt the warmth of the sun on his face illuminating the paths ahead, embracing the possibility of change. He looked down, cradling the rabbit against his chest. "I think we made it," Marco said, panting but smiling brightly. "You know, that was something else." "Yeah, it was." Jake felt a radiant clarity wash over him. The python and the coyote represented the demons he had faced for so long. He had fought with them just as fiercely as this day. That felt like a revelation, a redefining moment. "But there's something I need to do." "Are you finally going to talk to him?" Marco asked, the sincerity in his eyes shining like the midday sun. Jake nodded, his heart swelling with resolve. "I have to face my past. Just like this rabbit faced danger. I can too." And with that thought lighting the way, he set his phone to call his father. The moments felt heavy, filled with the promise of something fragile yet powerful. As his father's name pulsed on the screen, he swallowed hard, fingers trembling. The phone rang, each tone reverberating with potential. Jake felt the weight of what he wanted to say. He wouldn't run anymore. He was ready for the next chapter, to bridge the gaps of distance and hurt, to unravel the patterns of fear. "Hello?" His father's voice came through, familiar and foreign. Time stood still, and in that moment, Jake knew they were standing on the precipice of change, staring down together. "Can we talk?" Jake found himself echoing the words he'd received just a few days prior, not knowing where this path would lead but feeling the surge of hope propel him forward. This was the moment he'd dreamed of, the chance for connection, healing, and growth. "Yes," Jake's father replied, and suddenly it felt like the first step out of the darkness had finally been taken. As Jake hung up, he looked at Marco, a newfound brightness igniting within. "I think we'll be okay," he said, the rabbit still nestled warmly in his arms. The rabbit blinked up at him, and Jake realized it wasn't just about rescue. It was about finding freedom. Freedom to face life's jungles, freedom to rewrite his own history, and in doing so, become a source of light for others too. In that small Texas town, a new story was beginning, one where love conquered fear, where bonds transformed, and where the journey toward healing started with a simple leap into the unknown. Together, they walked back toward the ranch, hearts open, ready to embrace the unfolding possibilities ahead. With the Texas sun blazing above, Jake and Marco would face whatever came next fearless. Together, now is the time to join us on this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel, because you need to be here for the next riveting stories that will change hearts. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep those good vibes rolling. Comment below your reactions and the emotions this ending brought forth for you. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who are craving a transformation in their lives. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second.